with that being said, guys, I get to introduce an amazing, loyal friend. This gentleman, extremely hardworking. When you come out of the field he did and have to do the traveling that he did, you don't do that if you're lazy. You just don't. Okay. Um, Unbelievable father to his daughter, which is what a lot of us would want to be, an amazing parent, but we have to be around to be that amazing parent. He's been able to make that work. Like I said, but his commitment to leadership has been above and beyond. And what's nice about that is because of his commitment as a leader and his commitment to leadership, I see him being, and if you get to know him, you'll understand this. He is bent on helping others succeed. Okay. And that's what kind of in a roundabout way makes him who he is. And it doesn't matter what team you're on, he's there to help out. He's helped out people on my team in talking. And I didn't ask him, but that's who he is. He's there to help you grow. And guys, I'm telling you, with the information he's bringing today, you put 2 and 2 together and put it to work, it's going to create movement in your business. So with that being said, I get to bring up my dear friend, Mr. Julian Lewis.
Good morning, Chris. How are you doing today? It's great to see you, Mr. King. Tell Rose I said hi. I don't know if she's over there or on the other side looking at you, making sure you're doing what you're supposed to. But tell her I appreciate her keeping you in check and making sure you're. I just played. It's great to see you, brother. And ladies and gentlemen, before I get started, I just want to let you know that if you have an opportunity to work with Mr. Chris King, I don't want you to take that for granted. He has a heart of gold. He loves to help his business partners have success. He's fun to be around. If you've ever been around him, he cracks jokes from sun up to sundown, and that's the type of speed I'm at. So I enjoy spending time with him. I wish we could spend more time together. He's in disrespectful weather, which is 100 degrees. I don't touch that stuff. So unless you want to step out of that vortex, we probably won't be hanging out soon. But just to let you know, I still love you, and it's a perfect environment for a firefighter. And the way you started out with the training reminded me of the type of trainings that I'm aware of smoke jumpers starting with. There's nothing. If you ever want to research some amazing men and men and women now, definitely do some research on smoke jumpers. I think it was there was an all black smoke jumper group called I think it was like the Triple Nickels or something like that. They're almost lost to obscurity right now. I would highly recommend doing some research on it. It will freak you out, the type of courage it takes to be a firefighter and what they do on a regular basis. So it makes sense to me that you're doing the exact same thing here in this industry, saving lives and helping to get people to safety financially. So thank you, sir, for everything that you do. And ladies and gentlemen, T, I see you. What's up, girl? Hey, where's Ken at? Tell Ken I said hi. I miss you both. I love you. So everyone, I get to get started with today. We're going to talk about something that's scary for some people. And I'm going to repeat the word often so you're not so afraid. But before I get into that, just to give you a brief background on myself. Yeah, my name is Julian, but prior to getting involved with this company, I was a senior systems engineer, and I was working roughly 80 to 90 hours a week at my job. I was averaging 50 to 60 flights a year. It put me in a situation where I didn't have time for myself or my family. But good fortune came my way. I was introduced to this by my first mentor in this industry, who shared with me a system that allowed me to build this around my crazy work schedule, enabled me to put my head down, go to work, and in 6 months of building around my crazy schedule, and enabled me to make a choice to walk away from my full-time income at my job and focus on going full-time with ACN. That allowed me to come home and be the type of father that I felt my daughter deserved, which was present. Finances are important, don't get me wrong, but time is more valuable because you never get it back. And I didn't want my daughter to grow up not knowing her father, because in my opinion, she needed to know the love from the first man in her life. So as she became adult, she would recognize what love is and what it isn't. And so for me, this company has allowed me to embrace and taste something that a lot of people come into this country for, and it's freedom. And so I want to talk about how to accelerate that in your life today. And what we're going to talk about, remember, this is an uncomfortable word for a lot of people. It's a scary word for a lot of people. For some people, they associate, this word with curse words. You guys ready for this? It's like a 4-letter word, but it isn't. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? It's 5 letters. And a lot of times when you hear people talk about it, you hear them say, it's the art of. It's the art of the what? Does anyone know? If you do, if you think you have an idea, put it in the chat. It's the art of the what? James, you should know this, brother. When you hear it, you're gonna be like, oh man, dang it, I knew it. I know you know it too. I know you know it. Fudge, man, get out of here, Chris. Although I hear that you do something special and create some magical fudge out there or something like that, we're gonna have to talk. The art of the asset, no. The art of the deal, no. That's a good book, but no. It's the art of the close. The art of the close. Closing makes people uncomfortable. It makes people, the idea of having to close makes people uncomfortable. And we're going to talk about it. Yeah, see, close. I'm excited for you that you're excited. If you're excited, I'm excited. So closing is important. Closing refers, just to break this down in simple terms, closing refers to the final stage in the sales process, where a salesperson or business successfully secures an agreement or commitment from a prospective customer to make a purchase. It is the point where the deal is sealed and the transaction is completed. The closing stage typically comes after the salesperson has engaged in various activities such as prospecting, qualifying leads, presenting the product or service, and addressing any objections, concerns raised by the prospect. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Okay, so I want to break this down because in ACN, there's a way that we close. There are a bunch of ways you can close, but there are a few ways that are powerful. But I want to give you an idea of certain types of closes so you kind of can understand what you're seeing or hearing when you hear leaders that are great at it do it. Their closing techniques vary depending on the industry. So we have some specific to our own, but the first one that I want to talk about is the direct close. So the direct close is when you just straightforward ask the prospect if they're ready to make a purchase or move forward. I love that. Like, that is one of my favorite ways. I don't like to play around. It's no fuss. And I'm gonna share with you that there's a great way to do it. I've heard people ask this question, and if this is contrary to what your leader teaches you, go with what your leader teaches you. Okay. But I come from a background, I'm cut from a different cloth. I want you to understand that my mentor, he broke his first million in the industry when he was 21 years old. Okay. He was one of those millionaires that Mr. Al Thomas talks about from his days in Excel. And he learned, his personal development was a movie called Glengarry Glen Ross and The Boiler Room. And so he used to do trainings where we would watch those two movies. This is how crazy it was. The ABCs, always be closing. So I came up in network marketing in high pressure closing. Okay. So that's not what I do today because that is very difficult to teach. You have to become a master at some of these things, and that's not scalable. Okay. We're not going to go that route. But I do want to tell you that direct close is great. In a direct close, people are asked if they are ready to make a purchase or if they're ready to, in our situation, if they're ready to get started, right? So the mistake I see a lot of people make is asking, um, are you ready to get started? I personally, knowing and understanding closing, I find that to be a mistake. Asking, are you ready to get started, would allow someone who to say yes or no. Okay, that's a mistake because I could be ready to get started, but I don't like people telling me what to do. That's just the type of person I am. Okay, so if you were to ask me, are you ready to get started? I'll just say no, just so you'll shut up because I don't like salespeople. And I'm being honest because I know there are some people on here who can relate to me. I'm the type of person that I'm ready. I have the money in the account and I know the car I want to get. I'm the type of person that goes onto the car lot and I don't even want you to approach me. Okay. So understand that we do exist. So a better question would be uh, to get what is the one thing holding you back from getting started today? What is the one thing? I didn't say what are the things. Notice I didn't say that. This is very specific with closing language. What is the one thing holding you back from getting started today, Chris? I don't need 5 things. I need the one thing. And the reason why I need the one thing is because I need that most important thing so I can handle that objection. You know what most people do? They get caught in handling objection hell. You're sitting there handling 20 objections and the person just throwing them at you like zingers. Let's see what you do with this one. Those aren't the real objections. So I want to get down to the real one. So we did this with a group of leaders on a Tuesday a few weeks ago, and they came up with some good objections. What's the one thing holding you back from getting started today? Rick, remember one of them was the spouse, right? I need to talk to my spouse. Who thinks that's like, dang it, that's tough. Like they 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 purposely left the spouse somewhere not in that room. They're out of space, they're at home, they're in a tunnel, they're somewhere else so they can pull on that cord and they can get life lighted out of this closing situation. Is everyone, you guys know what I'm talking about? And because it's the spouse, that dynamic, you don't want to disrespect that dynamic. So a lot of people just say, okay, all right, go ahead and talk to your spouse. Oh, for today, we're professional closers, all of us. Okay. So if someone were to say, and I listen, no answer is wrong yet. Okay. So if someone says, I need to talk to my spouse, and you weren't in that leadership training with me, because if you were, it's not fair. You shouldn't put it in the chat. But if you weren't in the leadership with me, and I say, well, this looks great, but I need to talk to my spouse. What would you say? How would you handle that? Does anyone know? And you know what? For sake of this, Jabri, I don't know if we can allow people to unmute themselves. They can unmute themselves if their Twitter fingers are a little lethargic. If you type slow, you can unmute yourself and tell me what you think. Okay, so that's great. Let's get him or her on the phone. Absolutely. Wait, let me see. You guys are moving fast now. Absolutely. When could the three of us get together? Let's call them. Open. Okay, mic is open. You can do it. What they said, Marvetta said. All right, these are great. These are actually pretty cool. I'm going to give you something that's going to mess you up. Are you ready for me to mess you up? Who wants to get messed up this morning? Right? That sounds crazy, but I'm glad all of you are so enthusiastic. I see you waving your hand. Let's get you messed up. All right. So this is the question I ask, and this is going to mess you up. All right, that's cool. I get it. That, I understand. I would want to talk to my spouse as well. But let me ask you a question. Do you want to do this? I know you need to talk to your spouse, but do you want to do this? Okay. If they need to talk to their spouse, usually they're going to say, yes, I want to do this. Right? Well, this is important because if they say, yes, I want to do this, then I'm going to ask them this question about their spouse. Well, then what if your spouse says no? What are you going to do? See, most people don't get there, and this is important. This is really important. So what if your spouse says no? Then what are you going to do? You know what a lot of men say? And they'll say it quiet because they're like afraid their spouse is around the corner or something. They were like, well, if she would say no, I'd probably do it anyway. If it's a woman, she'll probably say loud, he doesn't own me, I'll do it anyway, right? I'm not politically correct if you haven't figured that out. So, but I don't deal in political correctness. I deal with what people are really thinking in their brain. And that's why we close so strongly. Okay. So what if they say no? Most people are going to say, I'd do it anyway. And that's what I'm looking for. Well, listen, if you would do it anyway, let's get you started now. And if your spouse says no, we're going to run as fast as we can to get that bonus that I talked about so that money can be replaced. If she says yes, then you'll know that she's on your side and we can move even faster as we do this. It's that simple. Because what you really did is you diffuse something. The talking to the spouse wasn't the thing that they needed to do in order to make a decision. Do you see what I just did there? And so you arranging to connect with the spouse, although it sounds good, what that person is usually doing is trying to get space between you and them so that aliens can abduct them and you'll never see them again. And if you oftentimes, if you do the three-way call right now, or you get on, let's present right now, it's almost a pressure cooker situation where their spouse can feel it because guess what? That's their spouse. And they can tell they're a little uncomfortable. And so the spouse might say, hey, I need to, and this happens often, and tell me if you've ever heard this. Now, this is great. I think we need to talk about this together offline first, and then we can give you our decision. Here's what that means. When you go away, he or she's going to say, hey, are you okay? Do you want to do this? You seem, no, girl, I wanted to tell you so that we can run away, right? And this is a conversation that they'll have without you. And then you won't be able to reach them anymore. They'll go ghost. Okay. So this is the best way to find out if the person really wants to do it. If your spouse were to say no, would you still do it? Yes or no? And if my spouse said no, I wouldn't do it, then we can go down that route. All right. So that's a good one for direct close. The other close that I do often, I do all the time. And Chris, you could attest to this. The assumptive close. I assume the close 100%. So that means that as a business, as an IBO, you assume that the prospect is ready to go. You assume and you present the next steps or details for enrollment, guiding them to completion. Okay. So what did you like the most based on what you saw here, what do you like the most? Well, I like this. I like residual income. I like that too. I liked saving money. I love that too. See what I'm saying? And then I go into, what is the one thing holding you back from getting started today? I already know they're going to get started today, but what is the one thing holding you back? Let's talk about it. And then this is for a lot of big presentations. The next one is the trial close. And it's where the IBO seeks a commitment from the prospect by asking trial questions, or they're considered trial questions like you would see at a court, or closing questions to gauge their interest. So that's called like old school traditional network marketing closing. If not you, then who? If not now, then when? Those are trial close questions. It's to get the person to think about how great this would be when they could see themselves winning because of the situation. One of the other ones I use at the end of my presentations is the alternative close. I give people doors that I want them to go through. So you see the 3 categories that I use at the end of my presentations. And I say, the majority of the people that see this are going to fall into one of these 3 categories. You may lean towards category 1. You're ready to get started. You may lean towards category 3. You love the idea of supporting your family member or friend that introduced you by being a customer and a referral. Or you may lean towards category 2. And category 2 is you have questions. Your questions might be about becoming a business partner or about becoming a customer. Whether you're category 1, 2, or 3, it's totally up to you. We just want to determine which category you lean most towards and help you and help you by facilitating those questions. So that's the alternative. So they're going to pick one of those 3. And what that allows you to do is sort. So based on what they pick, you're able to move in that direction. Okay. And then there's the urgency close. All right. This is where an IBO presents the customer or emphasizes, I should say, a time-sensitive factors. Like at the end of the month, the bonus is going to go away. We don't know if there's going to be a bonus next month or if it's going to be as great. If you get involved today, you have 30 days from your start date to hit that bonus. But if you start tomorrow, the bonus that we have today won't be around. That's an urgency close. And so it encourages your prospect to make a decision promptly. All right. So that's urgency. So closing is critical step for IBOs, as it determines the outcome of the efforts invested in building relationships, presenting the opportunity, and addressing concerns. Effective closers, listen to this, effective closers understand their prospects' needs, objections, and motivations, and they employ appropriate closing techniques to guide their prospect toward a positive, enrolling situation. So how the heck are you supposed to know their motives and all this other stuff? Like, where does all this come from? I've trained on this before. It's called form. See, at the beginning of the presentation or the 3-way call, if you're doing something remote, it's your new person or the person who's introducing you, the presenter, to their guest. It's that person's job to tell you a few points about that individual. Okay. So I know this is a lot, but stick with me. Form, FORM, family, occupation, recreation, motivation. These are questions revolving around those subjects that we ask a person to identify their motives, to develop relationship, and to just get more familiar with who they are, to identify areas where we can relate and connect, and to identify areas where they can relate and connect to the presenter. We share that information with the closer. Hey, Chris, I want to let you know that, this is Josh Casey. I told you about him. He's in the military, but he wants to make sure when he gets out, because he's close to retirement, that he has something that will sustain him, allow him to have the flexibility that he has, but also have time with his family. I gave him some points about him that he can use to understand what techniques that he needs to share to connect and relate to Josh, so that Josh can see how ACN can show up for him and work for him. And so it's a really simple process that a lot of people are afraid of, but they're afraid because they say, what if I screw up? Who's been nervous to close because you think, what if I screw up and they decide they don't want to do it? Be honest, and you can put in the chat, is this the reason why you don't want to close? Put a 1 in the chat if this is the reason why. You're afraid that you're going to say the wrong things, and then the person is going to hear what you said and not join, and you're going to think it's your fault. All right. Deborah, you're a beast. You're not afraid. That's good. Neither am I. But if you are, it's okay, because I need to, there's something that you need to understand about closing. Closing influences enrollment. Closing doesn't mind control enrollment. All right. It influences enrollment. It doesn't mind control them like Debo. Some of you don't know who that is. It's okay. You can look it up later. When he comes around, you're quiet, but when he leaves, you're talking again. You know what I'm talking about? So some of you are like, I have no idea. But it doesn't mind control them. Some of the best closers lose sense of reality, and they actually think they're mind controlling people. And what they're doing is they're manipulating people. That's not what we're here to do, okay? We're here to influence a great buying decision based on the fact that what we have can benefit all these areas that they want benefited in their life. That's all we're doing, okay? So here's the thing that's going to help all of you that are afraid. Guess what? You can't say the right thing to the wrong person, and you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I've had the best presentation, flawless, close, sick. Close was out of this world. And the person just said, no, it's not for me. And then I've had times where I had someone shadowing me, and I said, all right, let's go. You're up. Let's get you going. And they said everything wrong. They said everything wrong. And the person said, this looks great. I'm ready. Let's get started. And I'm sitting there scratching my head like, what in the world just happened? So then if that's the case, then why do you want to get great at closing? Because remember what closing does. It influences the buying decision in your favor. And so in other words, there are some people that want to do it where closing helps them to get involved. Because a lot of people in the world have a problem making decisions. It's not that they don't want to do it. They just have a problem pulling the trigger. Majority of the majority of deaths on the operating room table aren't caused by the right decision or the wrong decision. They're caused by indecision. And most financial deaths are caused that way too. And so it's our job to help them to make the decision when they already know that they want to do it. So we ask questions so that they can reveal to themselves that they want to do it. And then after they've answered those questions, we help them to do it. That's really what closing is. And I wanted to be clear about that because sales, there are a lot of, I would say, they're not professional salespeople, but they've learned techniques. They're almost like the pickup artist. Have you guys heard of a pickup artist before? So a pickup artist memorizes all these techniques that manipulate a man or a woman to do what they want. That's what a lot of salespeople are looked at. What we're talking about is closing, influencing them to, or motivating them to enroll in something that they want to do and helping them ask them questions so that they can own the decision and they can see that this is a great fit for them. So you're assisting them where most people in this country are indecisive. You're assisting them and you're teaching them in the process of how to make a decision. That's really what closing is. And they're left with a great fit for what they want out of this, what their desired outcomes are. And they can recognize that what you are sharing with them will allow them to get their desired outcomes. And so the value outweighs the cost and they move forward. Does that make sense to everyone? Perfect. So who's a little bit more confident with the idea of the word of closing? Who feels it's not a bad word anymore? You guys good with it? Yeah? Okay, good. Because here's what I want you to start doing. If you can't say the right thing to the wrong person, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person, then I want you to start getting great at closing. And know this, we're going to talk about this next week. Know this, that there in our business, there are other ways to support closing happening. Okay. So what we can do is this. You can and do me a favor, just Brent, get a hold of me on IG, on Instagram, and shoot me your question there. That'll be easier for me. Okay. But here's what we need to do. Understand that there are things that you can add in that will support closing. And what we call in our team, we call it SWAT. And we're going to talk about SWAT. T already knows what that is. She's been SWAT. Her and her husband have been SWAT for me. Josh Casey is a ninja at SWAT. James Clark, Ursula, ninjas at SWAT. We're going to teach what SWAT is. And in ACN, it's Special Winning Attitude Team. It's not the people busting down the door with vests on and all that, but they support the close, and it starts before guests even arrive, whether that's remotely, like we are today, or whether that's in person. It doesn't matter. There's a way that you want to nurture the environment. You create an environment conducive to enrollment. And so it's going to make the enrollment process at the end just a matter of fact. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, perfect. So with that being said, I'm excited about next week. Put that on your calendar and get some people on that you want to help be a part of this, that can support more enrollment in your business. Last week, we learned about the system. So if now you're enrolling people, you're plugging them into the system, you're plugging them into the training, and you're helping them with the soft opening and grand opening, you're starting the 7-day process to ETL. You're going to start to see results. You're moving them through the pipeline. And that's what we need, movement. A stagnant business moves backwards. And so we want to have forward movement by keeping it super simple. And with that being said, Mr. Chris King, I'm done for today. I'm excited about next week, but I hope all of you got some value about what we talked about as it relates to closing.